Imagine being forced to live as someone else's dead wife, even if that someone was the Emperor of Rome. This is the disturbing story of Sporus, a young boy who was castrated by Emperor Nero so he could replace the woman Nero murdered with his own hands. It's one of the darkest and most twisted love stories in ancient history, and it reveals just how dangerous power and obsession could be in Rome's golden age. Rome has seen emperors who were conquerors, philosophers, and even madmen, each leaving their own mark on history. But none were as bizarrely cruel, unpredictable, and self-obsessed as Nero, the infamous ruler. His reign was marked by bloodshed, scandal, and relentless paranoia that gripped the empire. But among all his crimes, one stands out for its shocking mix of love, violence, and control: the twisted story of Nero and Sporus. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, better known simply as Nero, ascended to the throne of the Roman Empire at the astonishingly young age of just 17. Born into the powerful Julio-Claudian dynasty, Nero was thrust into a world of intrigue, ambition, and danger from the very beginning. His early years were shaped by the ambitions of his mother, Agrippina the Younger, who maneuvered tirelessly to secure her son's place as emperor. When Nero first became emperor, many Romans were filled with hope. He was seen as a fresh start, a promising young ruler who might bring peace and prosperity to the empire. The people cheered his name, and the Senate welcomed him with open arms, eager to see what this new era would bring. However, the immense weight of absolute power began to change Nero almost immediately. The pressures of ruling the vast Roman Empire, combined with his own insecurities, started to twist his character. The young emperor who once inspired hope soon became known for his unpredictable and often cruel behavior. Despite his position, Nero was never content to simply rule. He saw himself as an artist above all else, passionate about music, poetry, and theater. He sang and played the lyre before audiences, and even traveled to Greece to compete in the Olympic Games, something no emperor had ever done before. His love for the arts was genuine, but it also set him apart from other rulers and made him the subject of ridicule among Rome's elite. Yet behind the dazzling stage lights and public performances, Nero's private world was filled with darkness. He was deeply insecure, constantly fearing betrayal and conspiracy. This paranoia drove him to acts of shocking brutality, as he sought to eliminate anyone he saw as a threat to his power. Perhaps the most chilling example of this was his relationship with his mother, Agrippina. She had been his greatest supporter, orchestrating his rise to power. But as Nero grew more independent, he began to see her influence as a threat. Consumed by fear and suspicion, Nero ultimately ordered her assassination, a shocking act that stunned Rome and revealed just how far he would go to maintain control. In Nero's world, every relationship was poisoned by the struggle for power. Friends, family, and advisors all became potential enemies. Trust was a rare commodity, and betrayal was always lurking in the shadows of the palace. This tragic pattern would become heartbreakingly clear in his relationship with his wife, Poppaea Sabina. A story marked by passion, jealousy, and ultimately devastating loss. Poppaea Sabina was a woman whose beauty was legendary throughout the Roman Empire. She was not only striking in appearance, but also possessed a sharp intellect and a will of iron. Ambitious and cunning, Poppaea knew how to navigate the treacherous world of Roman politics, where alliances shifted like sand and danger lurked behind every marble column. She was a master at reading people, manipulating situations to her advantage, and always keeping her true intentions hidden behind a mask of charm and grace. Before she became empress, Poppaea was married to Otho, a man of influence in his own right. But her ambitions reached far beyond her first husband. She set her sights on Nero, the young and unpredictable emperor, and soon captivated him with her wit and allure. Through careful seduction and calculated moves, Poppaea managed to win Nero's heart, eventually becoming his wife and the most powerful woman in Rome. Her rise to power was as dramatic as any tragedy performed in the great Roman theaters. Poppaea understood Nero better than anyone. She soothed his tempers, flattered his ego, and offered advice that often steered the course of the empire. Yet for all her skill in managing the emperor's volatile moods, she could never fully escape the shadow of his unpredictable rage. Life at Nero's side was a constant balancing act, and even Poppaea, with all her intelligence and charm, was not immune to the dangers of loving a man as unstable as Nero. According to ancient historians, tragedy struck during a heated argument between the emperor and his pregnant wife. In a moment of uncontrollable fury, Nero lashed out violently, The stories say that he kicked Poppaea with such force that she collapsed, her life and the life of their unborn child ending in an instant. The palace, once filled with the sounds of power and intrigue, was suddenly silenced by this act of brutality. The death of Poppaea sent shockwaves through the imperial court and the city of Rome itself. For the first time in his life, Nero was overwhelmed by emotions he had never truly felt before: grief, guilt, and a profound sense of loss. The emperor, who had ordered countless deaths without remorse, now found himself haunted by the memory of the woman he had loved and destroyed. He wandered the palace in despair, unable to escape the consequences of his own violence. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, changing him in ways that would echo through the rest of his reign. Nero had killed not just his empress, but the one person who had truly understood him. The loss left a void in his life that nothing could fill. The imperial bedchamber, once a place of intimacy and power, became a haunting reminder of what he had done. The court whispered about the emperor's madness, and many believed that Poppaea's spirit lingered in the palace, a silent witness to Nero's torment. But Nero's obsession with Poppaea did not end with her death. Consumed by grief and unable to let her go, he sought a way to bring her back, no matter how unnatural. Ancient sources claim that Nero turned to bizarre and disturbing rituals, searching for someone who resembled Poppaea, and even marrying women who looked like her. His desperate attempts to resurrect his lost love revealed the depths of his madness, and the tragic legacy of a love story that ended in violence and obsession. Enter Sporus. He was a young boy, perhaps in his early teens, known for his delicate, almost feminine beauty. To Nero, Sporus looked strikingly similar to Poppaea. But there was one problem: he was male. That didn't matter to Nero. He ordered that Sporus be castrated, robbed of his manhood forever so that he could never grow into a man. In Nero's mind, this would preserve Sporus's youthful, feminine appearance, making him the perfect replacement for Poppaea. What happened next was shocking even for Rome. Nero dressed Sporus in the finest gowns, covered him in jewels, and gave him the title of Empress. In front of the imperial court, he staged a full wedding ceremony, he, the groom, and Sporus, the bride. The Roman elite were forced to attend, applauding this grotesque theater of grief and obsession. To the world, Nero presented Sporus not as a boy, not even as himself, but as Poppaea reborn. Sporus accompanied Nero everywhere: banquets, ceremonies, even public appearances where he played the role of empress. Nero treated him with both affection and cruelty, never letting him forget the role he had been forced into. To the people of Rome it was scandalous, but who would dare question the emperor? Behind the golden masks of Roman power, Sporus was living a nightmare, a boy stripped of his identity, his body, and his freedom, made to play the part of a woman who had died at Nero's hands. But Nero's madness couldn't last forever. In 68 AD, after years of revolts and conspiracies, his enemies closed in. Abandoned by the Senate and his guards, Nero faced the fate he had given so many others. With no escape left, he took his own life, ending the reign of one of Rome's most infamous emperors. But what happened to Sporus? After Nero's death, the world that Sporus had known collapsed almost overnight. The imperial court, once filled with opulence and intrigue, became a dangerous place for anyone associated with the disgraced emperor. Sporus, who had been forced into the role of empress, suddenly found himself without protection, adrift in a city that now viewed him as a living symbol of Nero's excesses and madness. In the chaos that followed, Sporus was passed from one powerful Roman to another, treated not as a person but as a possession, a curiosity to be displayed or hidden away. He was shuffled through the hands of senators, generals, and ambitious men who saw him as a tool to gain favor or as a reminder of the old regime. One general wanted him as a trophy, parading him at banquets to impress his peers. Another sought Sporus as a companion, perhaps hoping to inherit some of the mystique and notoriety that clung to him after his years with Nero. Each new master brought a different kind of captivity, but none offered true freedom or dignity. Eventually, Sporus ended up in the hands of Otho, who ironically had once been married to Poppaea herself, the very woman Sporus had been forced to impersonate. The layers of irony and tragedy in Sporus's life seemed endless, as he was once again thrust into the role of empress, this time for a man who had his own complicated history with Nero. Sporus was forced yet again into the role of empress, paraded before the Roman elite in elaborate ceremonies and public events. The weight of expectation and humiliation grew heavier with each passing day, as Sporus was denied any chance at a life of his own choosing. But when another ruler, the brutal Vitellius, threatened to humiliate Sporus publicly in a gladiatorial show, forcing him to play the part of a tragic mythological bride, destined to be violated and killed for the amusement of the crowd, Sporus faced a choice more terrible than any before. Alone and desperate, Sporus made his final choice, one that would end his suffering, but also his life. Rather than endure another public spectacle of cruelty and degradation, he took his own life, seeking peace in death that he had never found in life. In the end, Sporus' story is a haunting reminder of the cruelty and indifference of power. He ended his own life rather than suffer further, his final act a quiet rebellion against a world that had never shown him mercy. His story ended as tragically as it began, echoing through the ruins of Rome, as a testament to the forgotten and the voiceless, lost in the shadows of history. The story of Nero and Sporus is more than just a tale of cruelty. It's a window into the dangerous extremes of absolute power, where love turns into obsession, and grief becomes destruction. Rome may be remembered for its glory, but its emperors often left behind stories of darkness that remind us just how fragile humanity can be when controlled by fear and desire. If you found this story shocking, subscribe for more hidden and untold histories that textbooks leave out. Because sometimes truth is stranger and darker than any fiction.